2, Pacers blow a huge lead, lose to the Bucks right here in Gainbridge Fieldhouse. Tony East here covering the game for Forbes, and my oh my was that one pretty ugly for the Pacers, who had to feel pretty good about how they played for a long time. Up 9 at halftime, 11, I can't remember, not relevant. Up 19 in the middle of the third quarter, that is correct. 6:42 to go in the game, it was 83-64. Pacers were winning, they had to feel great. Ben Mathurin had just hit 2 big threes. Their style, their transition play was imposing. They just looked fantastic. For the final 18 minutes and 42 seconds, the Bucks outscored the Pacers 56-29. Dominance from Milwaukee. A very good team, to be clear, but one did not look like they didn't look like they had it tonight. Giannis, recovering from illness, had 4 points at halftime. Dame hadn't scored for a large portion of this game. Bucks were struggling from deep. It felt like the Pacers were one run away at that 19-point moment from putting it away. All of a sudden, Bucks respond. A couple threes here, a couple baskets there. It was 11 before you knew it. The Pacers' offense stalled, and they could do nothing the rest of the way. I tried to track down as many cut points as I could. The Pacers were 9 for 21 from deep after Mathurin hit those consecutive threes. They went 4 for 12 after that. The Bucks were 4 for 21 and then made 8 of their next 12. This total switch of fortunes from deep was a big part of it, but the Bucks did a better job walling off the paint than the Pacers did after those 3-point fortunes flipped, and that's why they were able to take over so much. A big part of that was Giannis, an incredible player, to be clear. But the way he dominated the second half was just too much for the Pacers. I mean, I think any team could handle, you foul Giannis too much, he makes some shots at the rim, and he beats you. That's what he does. When Giannis is hitting turnaround fadeaways, top of the jumper, flick the wrist bucket, what can you do to guard him? It's already hard to guard him. He made elbow jumpers in this game. He took over in the second half. Pacers had very few answers. I'm not even saying that to be critical of them. Their wall off him strategy worked well in the first half and has worked well for much of last season. But when he's playing like that, it was very tough for the Pacers to find the right answers, and they couldn't. And that's why they fell so much in the second half. They couldn't stop him. But I think the story of this game has nothing to do with anything I've said so far. I think the story of this game was the Pacers' struggles against the Bucks zone. Zone has been an issue for the Pacers this year. Not as big as I think it's been stated to be, but has been a problem, right? And I think the biggest reason the Pacers see zone so much is it's usually against their bench groups, right? Some combination of McConnell, Toppin, Jarris Walker, a center, whether it's Thomas Bryant or if it's a small ball group. Like, it has guys who can make threes, but it's not a group that anyone really would consider shooting heavy. And all of a sudden, when those groups are out there, they go against zone so much that they can't really score. The paint is too clogged up. They've gotten better as the season's gone on of playing into the middle of the court, passing from where they're supposed to, spacing in effective ways. But this Bucks team, so huge, so much length, it was impossible for them to continuously break that down and keep things flowing in a way that made the offense work. And I think that was a major, major issue for Indiana in this game. Excuse me, as the gate goes up behind me. They could not break down that zone. But usually the problem the Pacers see is the bench is the group that's seeing the zone against them. Tonight, the Bucks stayed in that zone a lot of the game. And they were making so many shots, it was easy for them to come back defensively, not in transition, and just set up in their zone, set up the way that they want to play. And the Pacers could not break it down. I thought they were doing well to get into the middle of the zone a lot, but they weren't doing well playing from the middle of the zone, if that distinction makes sense. The cuts weren't leading to enough plays. The movement wasn't leading to enough. They weren't quite as bad as they've been earlier this season at times, of just tossing it around the perimeter, but it was a little closer to that. And so I think a big reason that teams usually go zone against the Pacers is the three-point shooting, particularly of the second unit. The Pacers have lost shooting in the last year, trading away Buddy Hield, losing Doug McDermott. Like, that's fine. These are conscious choices. But especially a team with, Mathurin and Siakam, who are good shooters, but take time to load it up and assess things, and some guys who've been streaky all season. The Bucks are comfortable sitting in a zone the whole game, including against Pacers starters or better Pacers shooting units, and the Pacers never got a rhythm back. They never were getting downhill enough. That's what everyone stressed after the game. They have to be more willing to get downhill and attack the paint. They weren't willing to do that when they did. They didn't get far enough into the paint to actually do anything about it. When they did kick out to shooters, like I explained earlier, that flip, it never was really there in terms of finishing. The jumpers weren't falling. The shots they created that were good weren't falling. The movement wasn't as crisp as it needed to be. Just a bunch of compounding, I got it right the first time, factors in this game made it difficult for the Pacers to ever break down that Bucks zone. And Milwaukee deserves a ton of credit. Most teams that play the Pacers either get scored on a few times against zone and get out of it, or as soon as subs are made and a Halliburton comes in or an Nembhard comes in or a Mathurin comes in, whatever, get away from it or try to gook it up. And they didn't. They stuck with what they were doing that was working, and it continued to work. And I think they deserve a ton of credit for that. Doc Rivers does too, but the Pacers did not execute against it in ways that they have. I don't think they've been great against zone this season. In fact, I think they were kind of poor earlier in the season. I remember asking Rick Carlisle about why he thought so many teams went zone against the Pacers before they played the Blazers over a month ago. And that continued in this game. I'm not going to pin this all on some major Pacers issue against the zone for the season, but tonight it was absolutely their biggest problem, and they never really found a rhythm against it. Their small ball groups didn't work. Toppin wasn't providing enough as he did the rest of the month. His speed is usually so good for this team. It wasn't in this one, and there was just no answers. The other issue to me for the Pacers, as they tried to claw back to 500 entering the new year, was they did not get enough from their point guards at all. That's been such a calling card for this team, was either thriving in 2-point guard lineups or finding ways to succeed via their point guards. They just had a huge moment against Boston where Andrew Nembhard as the solo point guard changed the game. But usually they have two of Halliburton, Nembhard, and McConnell on the floor at all times. Those guys are great for the Pacers. They set tempo. They play well off of each other. They change the dynamics of a defense. In this game, 1, because of the zone, and 2, because of just poor play, TJ McConnell was 3 for 5, right? That sounds good. He also had 3 turnovers, though. But he was 3 for 5. And yet, that trio of point guards finished 10 for 32 from the field in this game. Halliburton 1 for 6 from 3, Nembhard 2 for 5 is fine, but on twos he was 2 for 9. On twos, Tyrese Halliburton was 2 for 7. TJ McConnell was fine inside the arc, but again he had 3 turnovers with his 5 assists. Not as many turnovers for Halliburton. He only had 1. It's just a bunch of layering factors for those point guards really hurt the Pacers too. They needed some of those guys to get going, because with none of them going and the pace not there and they're playing against the zone, what does that leave for the Pacers to be really threatening? That leaves their front court or playing slow through their 2 kind of assessing guys. That's not necessarily a bad thing, but playing more through Siakam, more through Mathurin. Those guys had good nights. 20 points for Siakam. I thought he played a good game. He was awesome early against Giannis. 25 for Ben Mathurin, who also had 9 rebounds. He was the reason the Pacers were ahead so much in the middle of the third quarter. He was playing great basketball at the time. Credit to those 2. They combined for 45 and played pretty well. But they also were the best options a lot of the night because of the way the game was being played, because of the flow that the game dictated, because of the way the Bucks were playing and the struggles the Pacers had. You put all that into a package, and you get a Pacers loss, and one they definitely will want back. Oh, man, they had it. I mean, they were up 19 in the middle of the third quarter, and I get at that moment thinking, all right, we got it, and I get a little bit of ease up and letting off the gas, but the Bucks responded very quickly, and the Pacers never were able to get back and rolling, and that stretch mid-third quarter just killed them. Dame finally got going with some threes in the second half. Chris Middleton was awesome early and then lost his footing. Giannis was amazing. Just a tough one for the Pacers to swallow, who now fall to 6-18. They're guaranteed to, at best, finish tied in the season series with the Bucks, which could matter for playoff tiebreakers. Their next game against Miami certainly going to be big for playoff tiebreakers. Currently 1-1 in that season series, but one the Pacers would like to have back. They'll have to wait another day to get over or back to 500. Something they've really struggled with. They've been over 500 once this season when they were 1-0. They'll try again with their next swath of games coming up. We'll have plenty more coverage on this channel. Thanks for watching.